Well, let's get some reaction from John Brennan's visit now from a former MI5 agent, Annie Machon. She's joining us live from Berlin. Hi there, Annie. What do you make of this? Was there a connection? His visit just a couple of days before we're seeing this crackdown.
It's very interesting timing, it has to be said. The heads of major Western intelligence agencies tend to have their diaries fairly well locked down for months in advance. So for him to suddenly have made this trip shows that either they are very keen to solidify, to cement certain working relationships with their new allies, or they see that things are spinning out of control and they're trying to regain that control. So
if you're going to put money on it, what would it be?
I think it's very interesting timing for him to have broken that. Probably trying to regain control. I mean, there's no secret about the fact that State Department official Victoria Nuland boasted that since the fall of the Soviet Union, America has pumped in about $5 billion into the Ukraine to try and peddle influence in that country. So I don't think there's any doubt that Washington has been meddling with the internal politics of the Ukraine and continues to do so. But I think that this time they have miscalculated the wishes of the Ukrainian people.
Well, now Kiev's deployed the full force of its military might, or starting to at least, on the protesters in the east. We're already starting to hear of casualties. We're maybe also hearing of fatalities. If this continues, if it kicks off even more, what's Washington going to do then? What's Washington going to do? Is it going to stand by?
I think it's going to bottle it. I think that it wants to make a loud noise and try and intimidate people, but I can't see that they have the power or the will, really, to intervene at this point. As we saw as well with their misadventures across the Middle East and North Africa over the last few years, they've had their nose blooded a little bit. And we saw them back down over Syria, where they tried to back certain insurgency groups there, who then turned out to be the people that they were condemning as potential terrorists. So they had to back down, as well as in the face of the UN activity of China and Russia. I think in Ukraine, they're going to have to do the same thing. They miscalculated on the level of support that they would receive. They miscalculated on the wishes of the people. It's a bit like when they tried to claim that the Crimea referendum was illegitimate. I mean, this was 97% of the people saying,
people going into polling booths, ticking sheets. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Quickly.
And they're trying to bring democracy to the wider world. And, they condemn it when other peoples want their own democracy.
And what about these claims we're hearing time and again from Kiev and its Western allies that it's Russia that's stoking all this up? Russia's firmly behind it. Russia's saying, well, show us the proof. Sergei Lavrov said yesterday, if you've arrested people that side that are Russian agents, that are Russian army people, bring them out, show them to us. Why isn't that happening?
Well, give us the proof, yes. Neither side, I'm sure, has perfectly clean hands in this. But as I said, Victoria Nuland, the State Department official, has boasted that the US has pumped $5 billion into trying to destabilise or trying to influence and peddle their influence within the Ukraine since the fall of the Soviet Union. Of course, this is power politics. Of course, major powers will all do this. But the US has been caught with its pants down this time.
Are we seeing some sort of default Cold War style era brinkmanship going on here now? Is it really going to come to that? Surely not. Hopefully not. What do you think?
I wouldn't have thought so, no. I think the US still has this old-fashioned, over the last 20 years, imperialist, victorious
But it wants to beef up its military presence on the borders of Russia. That's the worry, isn't it?
Well, it is, yes, and it's understandable. I mean, it's like history starts when the Western media decides it starts. So they ignore the fact that this provocation has been building across this region, particularly in the Ukraine over the last few years, stoked by the US. And then they only start reporting about the fact that it's anti-democratic when Russia tries to protect Russian-speaking peoples. I'm not an apologist for either side, but it strikes me as hypocritical that on the one hand, the US can intervene on humanitarian interventions and bomb countries across the North Africa and the Middle East, and including Yugoslavia, of course, in the late 1990s, and that's seen as okay. Whereas when Russia tries to intervene and do the same sort of thing, that's seen as bad.
It seems to be what you're saying is common sense, in fact. OK, Annie Machon, nice to see you. Thanks ever so much for being with us tonight and being live on RT International.